Hello, I'm Enzo, and can you beat Borderlands 2 with only amp damage? Amp shields were first introduced in Borderlands 2. Manufactured by Hyperion, they consume a bit of your shield when it's full to increase the damage of one shot from your gun. It's a neat gimmick, but useless for the most part. That's why I wanted to see if you could beat the entire game using them. First, let me explain how the rules and this run will work. If you know anything about Borderlands 2, you'll probably know that amp shields don't exist early on in the game. Just like rocket launchers and some other items, amp shields don't spawn until later on. Specifically around level 14 is where I found they start. So instead of farming or playing the story until level 14, I had a far more interesting idea to start this run. After asking around, I learned that a great place to get amp shields at their lowest level is Wambam Island. This is actually perfect because I can also farm money here, which is very important since I need to buy the shields from the vending machine. They are super rare from the actual chest. I usually just get guns from this chest. But now that I have a source for my shields, I need to actually get some. I'm using the map loader mod to reload my position, making farming the chest and vending machine way faster than usual. I've actually tried this entire run before, but it got stuck at a certain point, and there was a ton of other stuff that went wrong, then life stuff, I got the flu. Long story short, that run got scrapped, but I learned a ton of stuff from it. And that's why this run, I'm actually going to pick the shields that I use very carefully. If you didn't know, in Borderlands 2, all of the gear is made of different parts from different manufacturers, which all have their own upsides and downsides. I'm also using the part picker mod to help me see what parts are on these shields, since I am horrible with shield parts. I'm decent at most gun parts. Now you're probably wondering what parts I'm looking for. Well, there's this super cool site called bl2.parts. And it has almost all the items in the game, except for rocket launchers and I guess relics. But the super cool thing about this site, besides it being a great resource to actually learn what each part looks like, it actually tells you the stats and bonuses of each part, which is insanely important. As you can see in this shield guide, there are a ton of stats. We all know capacity, recharge rate, and delay. But what about special? Special is a neat stat that boosts shields' effects. For example, it buffs the amp in amp shields. Special is useless in just like a plain TDR shield that has no special effects, but it's good in most others. Amps are definitely the best example, but there's also like Nova and Spike shields, and pretty much all the others. So I'm looking for specific parts that actually boost the special stat, and I want to avoid parts that, remove special. In a perfect world, I would want a ton of Maliwan parts, but unfortunately, Maliwan is the rarest part. So I'll have to look for Hyperion and TDR instead. Anshin is also a good one that boosts special, but it has a worse recharge delay than Hyperion and TDR. That's the other important stat. I need a super low recharge delay because that's pretty much how often I'm allowed to shoot an amped shot. Now that I have all my shields, how am I going to use them at level 1? Well, the classic, Gibbs Save Editor. This is the only way to change the level of these shields. And since you're probably wondering why I got 5, that's so that I can have some progression instead of just being stuck with one super low damage amp shield for, 13 levels. I decided from last run that the shields will be odd numbered, and I may have forgotten level 7, but it's not a massive deal. Alrighty, now that the preparations are complete, I can finally get to the run. And of course, the rules. There's the usual no using a bar, because that would make things easier, and who wants that? And of course, I can only use amp damage from my shields to damage enemies. For my weapons, I'm going to be using the starter gear. The starter pistol will be my primary weapon, and I'll use it whenever possible, but I will keep the sniper handy for later on. I also tried to use the assault rifle early on. It's decent for range, but it's incredibly difficult to aim. The sniper and pistol are my best options and what I'll mainly be using. It's finally time to get into some actual combat now. I was gonna say this is my first taste of combat, but no, it's actually not. I've done all of this before, so I kinda know how this is gonna go. I wanted to try the SMG at first, but unfortunately it's Hyperion, which means its first shot accuracy doesn't exist. But it does work, at least at the start. As you can see, this is exactly how combat is gonna go for the entire run. I have to wait like 3 or 4 seconds between shots. And if I miss, which happens quite a lot in this run actually, I have to run away and let my shield recharge. It's nice that I'm one-shotting all the enemies, but that's kind of expected because, of course, this is the beginning of the game. So those were very simple Monglets. A lot of the other enemies here are Bullywongs, so they're relatively easy. Let's get to an actual boss and see how this goes. You see, the smaller enemies are relatively easy to deal with because they don't have much movement speed. What happens when you have to deal with Knuckle Dragger that is just running at you constantly? Knuckle Dragger is a great example of one of the biggest issues with this run: hyper-aggressive enemies. If the enemy literally just runs at me, there is nothing I can do. Well, except for run away, because if I try to fight them, I can't. They'll just keep damaging my shield and removing my amp shot. From the last time I tried this, I figured out that the only solution is to run away. This area kind of bugs Knuckle Dragger out. Her pathing doesn't work very well around here, and as a matter of fact, she can't actually go far past this point. Since she can't get to you here, she's gonna try and throw projectiles at you. Thankfully, these projectiles are relatively easy to dodge. But there lies the second and largest issue with this whole run: projectiles. These are slow-moving, easy-to-dodge projectiles, but what happens once we get into enemies with, guns? Well, that's a whole nother problem. One I'm gonna have to wait a little bit to deal with though, because as you can see, another major issue with this run is lack of damage. I have to wait a few seconds in between shots, and that shot doesn't deal much damage. It does 0 if it misses. Oh boy, this is gonna be a good one. As you can probably tell, this is not going to be fun at all. This run is the definition of suffering. Occasionally, I get super lucky with a shot and hit a critical. This is also easy because of where Bullywong's heads are located, but that fight took me 4 minutes. That's not actually terrible, but I still have to deal with the remaining minions in the arena. As you probably guessed, another issue with this run is large groups of enemies. Now, it'll certainly get worse when I have to deal with groups of enemies with bullets, but melee enemies aren't the worst. The beginning of Southern Shelf is pretty annoying because the Bullywongs here are also very aggressive and hard to dodge because of the horrible terrain here. It's always painful when I lose my amp shot right before I'm able to use it. But I did manage to get some cool trick shots off on the Bullywongs, which is one of the best parts about this run. But as you can see, even since Knuckle Dragger, this is when the run is truly getting difficult, because it takes multiple bullets per enemy, and if they're interrupting my shield recharging, well, guess what? It just takes even longer to kill them. It's just a game of infinitely running around until I finally manage to deal enough damage to kill one. Then I still have to deal with the rest. I still have no clue how I thought of this idea. More importantly, I don't know why it was a good idea to even try this. This is absolutely horrible and unfun. But I wanted to see if it was possible, so here we are. Now comes the real problem. That is these Marauders. If you've seen my other videos, you probably know I hate Marauders. They are programmed to be incredibly aggressive, and obviously their guns are a major issue for this run. My only option is to stand up here on the ice shelf and try to snipe them with my assault rifle. I wanted to use the assault rifle because I knew it would be a bit more fair than using the sniper. The sniper would definitely one-shot them at this point. My XP is also a bit inflated because I originally was planning to do, if I accidentally hit them with a non-amped attack, I would reload the map. But as you can see how slow this is going, yeah, there's no way that's gonna happen. Plus, it happens very rarely. The main reason it happens is the enemy manages to hit me right before my bullet hits them, so the amp doesn't count. and more importantly, it doesn't matter later on in the game, as later on, the only damage I'll really do is thanks to my shield. So yeah, I believe there were like 3 waves of 2 normal marauders that I had to clear out. I mean, at least I think it was 3, it was maybe 2. I did reload the map like twice. I usually clear out these enemies so fast that I don't even think about this, but I was really just waiting until more marauders come out, and more importantly, the bullymong spawn. Because you see, that's going to be another big part of this run. Since it takes forever for me to kill enemies with amp damage, I had a better idea. I'll just let the enemies fight between each other. In this case, the bullymongs and the marauders. But for now, I'm just gonna sit back and watch the 2 parties fight between each other. It's actually quite entertaining. Conveniently, in the end, the bullymongs won. And I like that because they're far easier to deal with than the marauders. That's how Liarsburg went. And if it was that terrible, well, guess what? This is just the starting area. It only goes downhill from here. The one nice thing is the fact I got to level 3 by farming some more bullymongs here. This is great because I can finally swap my amp shield. I get a tiny bit more damage, but more importantly, a way lower recharge delay. That went from 2.5 seconds to just 2. Okay, that's not much of a difference, but still, I'll take literally anything I can get at this point. One of the most important things I learned for this entire run is playing angles. More specifically, angles where I can hit enemies, but they can't hit me. It's a bit more difficult when you get enemies with guns, but these bullymongs that have projectiles and can hit pretty much anything, well, more specifically, like they can't get into small spaces like bullets can. So as you can see, they're super easy to shoot from certain angles like these. Now that I'm done with Liarsburg and the relatively easy enemies there, it's time for some real suffering. More ranged enemies, and of course, in large groups. On top of the guys in the back shooting at me, they have psychos that run up and rush me, which is a major issue. You see, I need to deal with the psychos that are running at me, but at the same time, I can't get hit by the bullets that are being fired at me. Any person in their right mind would just stop at this point. Well, they would have probably stopped earlier, but you can probably tell I'm definitely not sane. I haven't even mentioned the marauders yet. Again, hyper-aggressive enemies are the bane of this run. And let me tell you, most of the enemies in this game are hyper-aggressive. They just push with absolutely no brain. I mean, to be fair, enemies with rocket launchers will literally shoot you at point-blank range with no second thought. I mean, they don't damage themselves, so it makes sense, but still. This is definitely not how you're intended to play the game. Obviously, there is some level of hiding behind cover for your shield to regenerate, but not quite like this. The combat truly starts to get difficult when there's not much cover to hide behind. And that's not even mentioning the fact that enemies at this point can also throw grenades to get you out of that cover. On top of missing so many shots with this assault rifle, this entire place took an insanely long time. I mean, at this point, I'm already an hour into the run, which is just ridiculous, by the way. One of the largest issues I found throughout the entire run is actually experience. I felt like I was underleveled pretty much the whole time. Even at the beginning here, I wanted to get as much XP as possible because some of the early missions are relatively easy, like clearing out the berg and shielded favors. Obviously, I can't do the melee mission because this is an amp damage only, but I'm just doing what I can to get as much XP as possible. The enemies right before Boom Boom took 10 minutes to clear out. This is just a game of playing angles, waiting for my shield to recharge, and hoping I don't get shot before I can get my shot off, which happens quite a bit. I mean, this clip is a perfect example. And of course, how can we forget the fact that I miss 99% of my shots? This assault rifle was an absolutely horrible choice of weapon. I should have just stuck with the starter pistol. You see, I didn't want to use the starter pistol because of the 2-round burst, but at this point, I think hitting a second shot would be infinitely better than missing most of them. With all the problems I mentioned earlier, you can probably guess how Boom Boom is going to go. One of the major issues is the fact that both of them have explosive weapons. Boom has an explosive shotgun, and Big Bertha has, well, massive explosive cannon rounds. I jumped out of the arena and found a nice little cheese spot where I could actually shoot them, and they could not hit me for the most part. You see, there's a visual effect that looks like I'm getting hit, and I feel like I'm getting hit, but my shield is not going down, so I'm not. It's just a weird thing with this wall. I'm just happy that there are a ton of holes in this wall to shoot through. I'm still not aiming my pistol because I don't want to use the 2-round burst and accidentally hit a second non-amped shot. It is possible to cancel the 2-round burst, but it requires insanely good timing, which I'm not exactly good at. Since Big Bertha can't hit me, it's just a very slow waiting game of shooting, waiting a couple seconds, shooting, and repeating that process until Big Bertha is dead. Oddly enough, this boom was far more difficult than his brother. For some reason, he's staying super far away from me instead of shooting me at close range. I kind of forgot that he actually had a missile attack. That's actually super cool, but this is going to be a mild problem. Since I have no chance of hitting him at long range with this crappy starter pistol, I'm gonna have to go into the arena and actually fight him. The issue is, once Big Bertha is destroyed, the boom will permanently spawn 2 psychos, meaning even if you manage to kill one of the psychos, there's always going to be 2 until the fight ends. Even though psychos are melee enemies, they can still throw axes at you from long range, so I just have to keep running in circles and attempt to shoot at boom. Which, doesn't work half the time because shooting while running is incredibly difficult, especially with a weapon that's not designed for it. This fight also took around 10 minutes to complete in total. It really feels like way longer than that though, because I have to be completely focused during the entire fight. I can't lose focus for a second because if I do, I'll get damaged. If I'm too sloppy, I can actually die pretty easily. Even though Boom Boom are dead, I still have a massive problem in front of me, and that is the multiple waves of enemies that come out after you destroy the gate. Yes, they are all armed, ranged enemies, and on top of that, there's a baddie leading them. This is going to be a major issue. It is almost impossible to get a shot off without being hit first. On top of that, one of the marauders decide to take over the cannon. The good thing is that the enemies don't seem to go behind the conning tower too much. Did you guys know that? This is a whole conning tower. It's literally a giant shipwreck. I only learned that like a while ago. No clue how I didn't think of that all this time, considering how much I love warships. I always just thought this was a cool boss arena, not, a frozen in place ship. But anyways, that marauder getting on top of the cannon is actually awesome because, well, he's stuck in place. That doesn't stop my assault rifle or pistol from having horrible accuracy though. And I haven't even mentioned another issue with this run. That is, of course, shielded enemies. You see, the main problem with shielded enemies is the fact their shield will start regenerating if you don't hit them within rapid succession. Just like my shield. Just like my shield. Since my damage is so low, this can be a massive issue, especially if I have to keep running around, or if there are groups of enemies like this. And in the end, it took over 20 minutes to deal with all of these guys. Actually, it was closer to 25. Still, that is a whole ton of time just for some enemies. And of course, we're barely halfway through the level. There's still plenty of mobbing to go through. It's not like I can just skip a bunch of enemies either. Well, I guess I can maybe skip all of these guys, but still, there are a lot of parts where I do have to kill the enemies, and I also want to get a bunch of XP to be at least relatively on level. One strategy I always forget is possible in this game is called the circle strat. I'm not that great at it, but this jumping version works pretty well. Pretty much, you run around an enemy in circles close enough so that they try to melee attack you, but you also have to strafe away a little bit so they don't hit you with melee. You just want to interrupt their gun attacks so they can't shoot you. It only really works well against single targets, but that is always an option. I just keep forgetting to use it. Another thing that's very annoying about aggressive enemies is when they actually get smart and decide to corner me like this. This is my first death, and I'm not 100% sure what even killed me there. It was an explosion, but I can't really tell if it was a shotgun or a grenade that killed me. It could have been both, who knows. But I guess that's what I get for running into the enemies when I'm just supposed to stay back. My bad. I guess this is also a great time to talk about character choice. You see, I had a few characters in mind. Well, 3 specifically. The first time I tried this run, it was with Gage. Definitely not the smartest character for this, but she has 2 decent shield skills. The only issue with Gage, and my other great choice Axton, is the fact that their shield skills are actually in the second row of skills. That's a problem, because either way I would have to be level 11 at least to start getting a good shield skill. But there are trades between the characters. You see, Axton and Gage have really good shield regeneration skills. They give you shield recharge rate and shield recharge delay, which are both great bonuses to get. Maya, on the other hand, she has a couple shield skills, and her first one increases max shield, which isn't crazy helpful, but decreases recharge delay, which is good. It's also on the first row of skills, which is very nice. So there are pros and cons no matter what character I decide to play. But the other reason I chose Maya for this playthrough is because of her phase lock. I had a feeling that this would come in handy quite a bit, especially considering phase lock doesn't damage enemies, at least as long as you don't have any of the skills that actually give it damaging effects, which I don't. I really didn't want to rely on phase lock, but it does help quite a bit in some situations, especially when I start to get overwhelmed. I didn't use it that much, especially in the early game, but I will get a tiny bit dependent on it later on especially. How is this fight going to work? Oh, trust me, it's not. I knew that I was gonna have to cheese the hell out of this fight, so that's what I'm doing. First of all, I need to exit the arena. I guess I just could get out of the side, but a grenade jump looks far cooler. Since I've had to cheese this fight a few times before, I know just how to do it. You need to get back near where you hoist up Claptrap, and yeah, you sit back here and snipe him. That's literally how this works. Eventually, Captain Flint will come down and actually walk on the little beams here, which is super interesting. It was always weird to me how the enemies can kind of just path to those, but it's very convenient because it makes them far easier to hit. I just have to sit behind cover, wait until my shield regenerates, and take a shot at him. Cause of course there's still the possibility that, my gun misses, and this takes even longer than before. But the worst part about this entire fight, and I know it is all my stupidity, I tried to re-enter the arena normally. When you do that, it kinda resets the entire fight. I was super close to killing Captain Flint, and all of that time I just put into lowering his health is now wasted. That was very stupid of me, I know, and my punishment is having to do it all again. Between having to kill him just about twice, this took me over 30 minutes to do. That was painful. But at least Southern Shelf is finally complete, and I can actually get on with the story now. The only real thing of note on my way to Sanctuary was the baddie psycho I had to deal with. This is just a taste of what's to come, because there are, I believe, 6 baddie psychos at least in Frostburn Canyon, and I'm gonna have to deal with all 6 of them. This is going to be absolutely horrible. This one was especially difficult because even though I have a new shield since I'm at level 7, my damage is still horrible. Frostburn Canyon does give me a few more options for how to deal with them though. You'll see. While I was in Sanctuary, I did some of the super easy quests for some XP because I desperately need it. For Marcus's mission, I say that all of the weapons he gives you to use are allowed, at least during the mission, because, well, they're mission weapons and they get removed as soon as you're done with it. Plus, I used my amp shield to damage the enemies either way, so I'd say it's relatively fair. It's just for one mission. Right before Frostburn Canyon, I decided to kill Savage Lee, as I always do. Normally, I would want an Unkempt Herald from him, but this time I legitimately just wanted the XP because he drops quite a bit. But of course, the one time I don't actually need it, I get an Unkempt Herald. Granted, the parts are absolutely terrible, but I'll absolutely take it. I mean, I can't use it or anything, that's still just a crazy drop. I swear, when I'm farming it, it will literally never drop. The one time I don't want it though, Frostburn Canyon is where I'd like to introduce my Goliath strategy. Honestly, Goliaths are one of my favorite enemies in this game because they're super neat. You don't really see enemies being able to attack their own, like their own faction in other games. Even cooler, they level up when they kill other enemies, which is awesome. My entire goal is to use Goliaths as much as possible to clear out all of the other enemies and then kill them once they're the only ones left. It's a genius and very effective strategy. Not to mention the insane amount of XP you can get because Goliaths actually give you more XP than just killing the enemies regularly, which is pretty awesome. There are a ton of fodder enemies in Frostburn Canyon, as well as the spider ants, so it was super easy to level up just a basic Goliath into a Godliath. And of course, it's always super fun to see just the chaos he causes. The only issue with creating a Godliath, of course, is the fact you have to deal with them once everything else is dead. That's easy enough though, because they're very similar to baddie psychos, where they pretty much just run at you. Sometimes they'll do like a super long distance jump as well, but they're melee enemies. As a matter of fact, they don't have any ranged attacks, they can only jump or run at you, so they are super easy to deal with. It's also around this point where I have to rely more on the sniper because I am just outranged by everything at this point. There are tons of ranged enemies here, and the nomads are the worst. These aren't even the shielded nomads either. These are just normal or pyro ones. Even though I'm using a sniper, I'm trying not to hit headshots because of the critical multiplier. I've got quite a few Jacobs parts on here, which I'm guessing increases the crit multiplier. I'm not actually sure how that works. But a headshot would be pretty much an instant kill for most targets, and that would be way too easy. But on the flip side, I am starting to use elemental barrels to my advantage. This is just because, they're right there, and the enemies are walking by them. I might as well use them, because honestly, I don't use elemental barrels all that often, and they're actually quite fun. You guys can probably guess how the baddie psychos went. Pretty horribly. But on the second one, I had quite an interesting idea. You see the flame trap here, and I'm playing Maya? I hope you're thinking what I am, because this was extremely satisfying to just see him roast like that. Technically, it's his own fault for getting stuck there. Okay, well, it was my phase lock, but you get the point. I just thought that was funny and satisfying. It's a whole lot more entertaining than me running around in circles for a few minutes. The part with Lilith was actually super easy because, well, guess what? She does most of the heavy lifting, which is super nice. I've never really understood the hate against Lilith until Borderlands 3. Then it's perfectly justifiable. But she's actually quite helpful, at least in this instance. She can be annoying some other times, especially in Angel Core, but maybe I'm just a bit biased. Lilith, and well, Tannis and Captain Scarlet, do share one of my favorite voice actors of all time, so that's maybe why I'm a bit biased. Either way though, Lilith's help this run was insanely helpful. It saved me a whole lot of time. Back at Sanctuary, I definitely could have done this earlier, but it's at this point in the story where I remembered, oh yeah, I can start getting class mods from vendors now. Since I am definitely not an expert on class mods, I was farming these vending machines a little bit just to see what I could get. I'm hoping to find something that has either shield recharge rate or delay. And since Dr. Zed has 2 health machines, well, technically 3, but his shop is the same as one of them, so really just 2. Combine that with the map loader, and I have a very easy way to farm class mods. At least white rarity ones. Green if you're super lucky, but let's be honest, I'm just going to be using white class mods the entire run. Eventually, I found a class mod called Banshee, which is super awesome. It increases my recharge rate and decreases my delay. That's exactly what I was looking for. 20% is great. 18% is close enough to 20, so I'm just going to call them both 20. Those are great bonuses, so this class mod was an amazing find. I believe most characters have something like this, well, except for like Salvador and Krieg, I believe, but I'm guessing Accident and Gage have something similar. After that, I was doing some other stuff, mainly in memoriam for a bunch of XP, since Bull and his skags are a nice source. And conveniently, he won't ever leave his arena, so that makes this fight super easy. Right before I went to the dust, I did test the vehicles to see if amp damage works with them. Unfortunately, it seems like only the B works with vehicles' guns. That means I'm not allowed to use vehicles to destroy other vehicles. It's going to be amp damage all the way. This means I'm gonna have to destroy enemy vehicles on foot. And I had no clue what I was in store for. I knew dealing with the vehicles was going to be bad, but I had no clue how horrible it really was until I actually started fighting. The only reason this is possible is because enemy vehicles in this game are incredibly stupid, especially in the dust, and they have a tendency to get stuck quite a bit. When I manage to hit the enemy vehicles, it barely makes their health bar move. That is just like disheartening. I do almost no damage to these guys. I mean, yes, vehicles are balanced to be fought in other vehicles, at least in normal mode. Vehicle balancing gets odd later on, but yeah, needless to say, this is gonna take a while. And I assure you, there is no chance I could beat one of these things just out in the open. The only way to destroy enemy vehicles with amp shields in this run is by doing this. I need them to get stuck, I have to camp them. Plus, a lot of my damage right now is coming from the sniper rifle. It does a bit more than the pistol, and that's what's carrying me here. But if you look at this other clip I got of another stuck vehicle, for this kill I only used the starter pistol, and this took forever. This was insanely painful. The next major obstacle in this run is obviously Bad Ma. From experience, this is definitely one of the worst fights in the run. Conveniently, it is possible to circle strat him, and even better, I can actually use phase lock on him. But since my last run was actually as Gage, I wanted to try and do this without phase locking as much as possible. Bad Ma is incredibly difficult. Besides his massive damage and health bar, he is the single most annoying nomad type to deal with. Shielded ones. And these are physical shields that can actually block bullets and stuff, which, like I said, are the worst. He got a few good hits on me when I was being very careless, but in total, this fight actually isn't the worst, especially for being 3 levels under. Well, at least 1 level under, because most bosses are scaled 2 levels over you. I just haven't been getting enough XP. Kind of the story of this entire run. This certainly wasn't the worst fight in the entire run, but man, it took a long time. The fight just got more stressful near the end too, since I accidentally got hit a couple of times and I was quite literally 1 shot from being dead. But phase lock just carried me through the entire fight. Either way, I am very happy that fight is finally done with. At least that's what I thought at the time. You see, I am very much underleveled. I mean, the skull by Bad Ma's health bar should indicate that. The second I went into the Bloodshot Dam, I knew I wasn't going to be able to get anywhere. This means I have to farm Bad Ma, as he is a great source of XP. The recommended level for this mission is level 12, so that was my first goal. Since I've beaten Bad Ma once, using the starter pistol, I decided that the sniper was fine here, even with hitting critical hits, because that's the only way this farm is going to go anything close to fast. As you can see, this is a very, very slow farm. The worst part is that I haven't played Maya in a while, and I'm not always the best at phase locking. Bad Ma has to be looking right at you to get a good phase lock angle for headshotting him. If he's not, he goes at this weird sideways angle, and it's almost impossible to hit his head. This is definitely one of the most boring parts of the run though, so I'll skip dozens of minutes of farming him. It took me about 10 minutes to get to level 11, so I wanted to see how it would go. A lot of the enemies do seem to be level 11 or 12, so I decided it can't be that bad, right? And it really wasn't. Here's another interesting thing about nomads that I literally always forget about. They can actually command other enemies. In this case, the nomad literally told the other enemies to rush me, and that's what they did. I don't know how he knew my exact weakness. but that shield of his certainly isn't helping my case. Anyways, here's a fun fact. This is actually the exact same point the other run just died at, because I just couldn't kill these enemies. And then I got sick and couldn't continue the run. But now that I have Maya, dealing with this nomad and the other enemies is going to be a whole lot easier. The issue is when they try to surround me, which they're quite successful at. Dealing with 3 targets at once is very difficult. But with plenty of hiding, I eventually managed to deal with all of them. The Bloodshot Stronghold was just a ton of falling back constantly because of how little damage I deal. The enemies could just rush me for free. There's nothing I can do about it. The good news is that I'm actually making some progress. Most of it is thanks to phase lock. Just being able to stop a single enemy makes a massive difference in any combat scenario. The most difficult area, well, pretty much always with the Stronghold, is of course what's called the toilet room. Unfortunately, I don't have any way to knock enemies into the middle besides grenades, but I'm only using grenades for grenade jumps. The main issue isn't even the lower area, it's actually the upper area that has a ton of enemies. The primary issue here is, of course, angles. I am getting shot from literally everywhere. It's extremely hard to hide, but also have a way to still hit the enemies. This is, of course, where the sniper truly comes in handy. It is my only way to hit enemies accurately at range. I also spent the iridium I had on sniper ammo slots, but I still don't have much, so I have to use my sniper very carefully. Another thing some of you might have noticed in this run is actually physics. Honestly, that is one of the coolest things in Borderlands 2. It's exclusive to NVIDIA GPUs, because, you know, NVIDIA made it and everything, and it adds some super cool particle effects. The main issue with physics is its tendency to crash the game super fast. I haven't had any issues so far because I do have the BL2 fix mod, which helps a ton with crashing, but there still were a few crashes in this run. I mean, you'll see it later on, but still, the particle effects are absolutely beautiful. I especially love them in the Stronghold because of the water pipes. Defeating pretty much all the enemies was extremely slow, but if you know this game, there's one major issue I'm gonna have to deal with. That is, of course, Mad Mike. He is level 14, and with that rocket launcher, there is no way I can actually beat him, no matter what I try. The only thing I could really do was just get to the save point, because even if I died, I would at least spawn right there and not have to walk all the way back. Naturally, he killed me. I mean, that should be no surprise at all. And I had a bad feeling about this, because right now, I'm literally stuck between a rock and a hard place. I either have to deal with Mad Mike or a ton of ranged enemies. Neither one is going to be good. Oddly enough though, he kinda just walked away back into the toilet room. I'm certainly not complaining because I would rather not deal with him. Even though he's going to be a decent amount of XP, yeah, I don't think it's worth the effort. I still have a ton of Bloodshot Stronghold to go through. And by go through, I mean, I realized I was super close to the end, so I thought, might as well just run past all the enemies here. The XP isn't really going to matter. I mean, I definitely should have cleared them out because all the XP does help, but I was getting quite sick of this place. Just like with the rest of this run though, I had no clue just how bad the ramparts were going to be, because I didn't even start considering the Warden. Yes, there's something to think about for the super long journey up until the fights. Warden, how am I going to deal with him? The skipping cutscene feature of, well, I think it's BL2 fix, whatever mod I have that skips cutscenes, it's super nice, but there are still a few that get past it. Like this one for some odd reason. Also, Captain Scarlet's introduction. I haven't done all the DLCs with this mod, but those are two notable ones. Either way though, it saves a ton of time in these playthroughs because, well, I've seen all these cutscenes at least several dozens of times. I don't know how many for sure though. The Bloodshot Stronghold was bad enough, but the ramparts is where things get truly terrible. I was hoping that the robots and bandits would fight it out and kind of kill each other off. Unfortunately, the robots kind of just dominated and cleared all the bandits out super easily. Combine this with just the insane amount of robots that spawn here, let's just say I'm going to be here for quite a while. At this point, I'm still not aiming for critical points, but that is the one nice thing about robots. Their limbs are super easy to hit, at least, like the attachment points to their torso, which are their critical spots. So robots are actually super easy to deal with. It's just difficult because of how many of them, have guns and are shooting at me, which means they interrupt my shield, I have to run all the way back to the start of the level. You know the deal by now. The largest issue here, well, besides Warden, but we're getting to that, is obviously the baddie loader that spawns. This is the first enemy I pretty much have to resort to critical hits. As you can see by my non-existent damage normally, this is the only way to actually kill this guy. I literally deal 6 times the damage with a critical hit, so I guess that should give you a rough idea. This one encounter would have taken 6 times as long if I didn't just aim for critical hits. This is also the point where surveyors start spawning. They're an issue all their own because of how annoying they are to hit. However, that's what phase lock is for. I love being able to pause surveyors in spot. One thing I will admit though, what's even more fun than just pausing surveyors though, is actually Maya's left capstone, Thought Lock. Having surveyors actually heal and shield you instead of the enemies is so much cooler. It's one of my favorite things in this game for sure. Almost 30 minutes later, it's time for what I've been, well, dreading up to this point. Warden. How's this fight gonna go? Well, at first, I managed to get a few decent critical hits in. The only issue is I just don't supply enough damage to actually break his shield and interrupt his constructing. Do you see the issue? All the loaders he's spawning. Considering the Warden will do that pretty much infinitely, yeah, I have no chance of winning this fight. The gun loaders can literally just push me back because I have to dodge their bullets, the exploders are running at me constantly, and there's a surveyor to top it all off. I don't think I've ever seen a Warden fight more doomed than this before. I literally had no chance. And remember, this is using a sniper rifle with a really good critical hit multiplier. Considering the fact his shield does regen, I literally just gave up at this point because I knew it was going to be impossible, at least in the Bloodshot Ramparts. I'm hoping the Friendship Gulag will give me a better chance. But yeah, I just had to wait this entire fight out because what else can I do? However, the Warden leaving did give me a half-decent idea. You see, there's actually 2 chests back here. A normal one, in the form of the toilet, and a red chest, in the trunk. I thought, since I have the map reloading mod, I might as well farm this place for a little bit to see if I can get anything useful. Because it's not like I have much else to do. I need to get stronger before I fight Warden again. As you saw, I had no chance. So I have to do something. I either need better shields, better class mods, or more levels and XP. In the end, I went for a combination of all of these because I need any strength I can take at this point. I also found a Rolling Thunder in the middle of this farm. I mean, this grenade is almost completely worthless. It's kind of fun to use, but extremely dangerous. I guess it is an incredibly rare find though, so that's cool. When I went back to farming Badma, I was originally planning to stop at level 13, but considering how much XP he gives, I decided to go right for 14, because I could. At this point, I can go back to Wambam Island and farm more shields if I absolutely have to. But for now, I really like the level 13 shield I picked because it does have a Maliwan part. That is the shock resistance. It's not useful all the time, but trust me, when there's an enemy with a shock weapon, you will be thankful that you have shock resistance. Oddly enough, the Hyperion Friendship Gulag was actually way better than the Ramparts. This is for a few reasons. First of all, a lot of the enemies here are closer to dust level, which means they're under leveled for me, making it way easier. And of course, there's plenty of cover to hide behind. Sure, there are a ton of enemies here, but nowhere near as many as in the Ramparts. Once I actually got to the Warden though, I got a little bit concerned, because I noticed that this fight is going to be a whole lot like back in the Ramparts. The Warden will keep constructing more enemies, there are surveyors. However, there is one thing that can save me here. Since this map is way larger, there are actually multiple vectors of attack I can take. Instead of just one very awkward angle, I can actually hit him from 3 different sides. The option to choose my position here is amazing and makes the fight a whole lot easier because this means I can literally just avoid robots. I can lure them over to one side and then go to a different side and shoot the warden. Another bizarre thing is the fact that the warden's shield doesn't seem to regenerate. Back in the ramparts, it looked a whole lot like it regenerates naturally. Maybe that was just a surveyor and I was blind. But here it doesn't seem to be regenerating at all. I'm almost wondering if that is an intended thing to make this fight a whole lot easier. I'm not 100% sure. I could just be losing my mind at the exact same time. Either way though, I'm glad this fight is a whole lot easier than before, because this is easily, well, the second worst part of the run. It only goes downhill from here. Naturally, it took me a long time to figure out my entire, flanking strategy until the end, but once I got his shield down, it was super easy from there. The best part about the entire fight is, once you've destroyed the warden, Roland will actually help you out with all the robots. Well, not all of them for some odd reason. I don't know if he only targets the ones that get moonshot in or how this works specifically, because he kind of just stopped fighting after a while. I can't really complain though, because this mission is finally done at this point. That nightmare is finally over. For Tundra Express, I could have easily used the machines to ignite all of our kids, but I wanted to try a fire melon with an amped shot. That's when I realized a minor problem here. The Varkid pods. You see, the main issue is, well, the one I've been facing the entire run. Lack of damage output. I literally cannot deal damage fast enough to kill them, which means they will almost always pod into an adult, unless I phase lock them like that. But that was just a test, okay? This is a major issue because the adult Varkids are some of the most annoying enemies in the game. Their projectiles are insanely difficult to dodge, and as you can see, well, I can't kill all the pods, so there are going to be quite a few of them. Let's just say I spent a lot of my time here dodging in circles, having to deal with adult Varkids. But fighting them was pretty much necessary because I desperately need any XP I can get. And Varkids, well, they're not the easiest source, but they're a whole lot easier than dealing with all the bandits here. I was originally planning to clear out all the enemies in this place, but looking at how long it would take, I decided to just run through as fast as possible. Thankfully, my build does kind of allow this because I have a really fast shield recharge. I guess that's one of the few bonuses of amp shields. But yeah, there is no way I'm going to stick around that place to deal with the buzzards. Those are going to be a huge issue later on too. Before I go and fight Wilhelm though, I decided that I want to get any upgrades possible to my build. This entire time I've been using the Vault Hunter's relic since it's pretty much a placeholder, but I found a shield recharge rate relic. That's a massive find because that's, well, a great boost to my entire build. It took me a little bit, but to finish off the build, I found a new shield, which was super nice. To finish off the build, I actually found a bouncing Betty grenade, which I just wanted to test with amp shields. And finally, a better amp shield. This is a massive upgrade, as you can see here. With that farming over, I can finally return to the normal run. I really wanted to test if bouncing Betty grenades would work with amp shields, and I might have to try it with the bee sometime to see if it works, but no, I'm guessing the bouncing Betty's projectiles just counts as like grenade damage. I was really hoping they would have been counted as bullets, because that's kind of how the grenade is described, but nope, I'm willing to bet it's like grenade damage. Just like Tesla and other area of effect grenades, that's my best bet. Since a lot of the robots spawn damage, let's get to the real points of the end of the line. That's obviously Wilhelm. I had no clue how this fight was gonna go. I mean, I knew it wasn't gonna go well, but I had no clue just how bad it was going to get. The major issue with Wilhelm is all of the shield surveyors he enjoys spawning. You need to shoot his head to interrupt his construction. That's sometimes an issue, but not impossible. The problems really start when he starts spawning in more loaders and then constructing shield surveyors. He always likes to do it at an awkward angle where I can't hit his head, and once he's built one surveyor, well, he builds another and another. He can have up to 3 shield surveyors at once, and let's just say this fight is literally impossible. I'm not even gonna sugarcoat it. Unless there's some sort of crazy cheese where you can stop him from spawning enemies, I think this fight is actually impossible. I reloaded the map at least 5 times. I tried all sorts of things. I tried to strike him early as he jumps out. I think once he gets one surveyor spawned, the fight is literally just lost. And you can't stall him forever because he's gonna spawn in loaders eventually. To sum up this entire run, I am willing to say you cannot beat Borderlands 2 with only amp damage. It was certainly a neat idea to try at the beginning, but yeah, Wilhelm and his shield surveyors, they kinda just doomed the fight. Even after I cleared out all the loaders that he spawned, there's still 3 shield surveyors I have to deal with. Once they fully shield an enemy, they have their own deflector shields, which I literally have to use phase lock to get rid of, or else, you know, everybody's favorite mechanic, bullet reflection, happens. So unless there's any way to stop his shield surveyors from spawning, I say this fight, and thus run, is literally impossible. But you might notice something. The video is not over yet. Yes, even though the run has completely failed, I just want to see how long I can keep going. So you're probably wondering, how am I going to deal with Wilhelm and all of the other shielded enemies? Well, there's a super neat gun in this game called the Trespasser. It's based off of Mordecai's skill from Borderlands 1, and yeah, it literally does the same thing. It penetrates enemies' shields, so that pretty much meaning you can go straight to health damage. You don't actually deal damage to his shields. It should be pretty obvious why I chose this as my weapon. So yes, I obviously cheated this in, but I only made it level 1 to make it fair, just like the Gearbox Sniper. The fight itself isn't even that bad. It's relatively easy to dodge all of his attacks. The loaders are also super easy to take care of. The main issue is legitimately just his surveyors. I mean, I guess it's nice that shield surveyors generally don't attack. Sometimes they do. I'm not sure how they decide that. But here they just seem to sit around with their deflector shields up. Either way though, this fight was only possible thanks to the amazing power of the Trespasser. Right before I finish up all of the Sanctuary shenanigans, you can actually do the good, the bad, and the Mordecai a bit early, as long as you don't insert the new power core. It's a pretty neat little thing. I also managed to hit the skip on the first try, which is super neat. Either way, I want to do this mission real quick. Even though I already have a relic, it's a little bit of decent XP, and that will bring me to level 16, which will help me out a whole lot for the fridge. I was originally planning to just let these two fight to the death, but I may have gotten impatient and intervened. I mean, hey, the run's already invalid. I might as well do whatever I want at this point. As long as it's still with amp damage, the Trespasser is a ton of fun to hit crits with. I was also planning to farm these guys for some XP, but they are not worth it, especially when I still have Bad Maw as a pretty decent farm. The fridge is just another massive bandit level. Thankfully, there is a ton of cover here, but man, rats have to be the most aggressive enemies in the entire game. They rush you even harder than marauders or robots do. It's pretty insane. I literally had to open and close this door for cover. Which actually is kind of funny. I really like doing that, but it's pretty insane just how fast they managed to corner me. I mean, I guess part of it is how little damage I deal, but still, everybody hates rats. Out in the Highlands, I knew there was absolutely zero chance of me killing a stalker with either of my real starting weapons. The Trespasser is the only thing I can use to kill them. I have to admit though, the Trespasser is a ton of fun, just being able to ignore enemy shields. I mean, that is why Mordecai is my favorite character to play in Borderlands 1. He is easily the most broken character in that game. He's a ton of fun to play. I decided to take the platform across the bridge because I knew there was no way I was going to deal with that exploder. I mean, maybe I could with phase lock, but robots fold up when they're phase locked, so hitting their critical is incredibly difficult. Either way, there's one tiny thing I forgot about here. That's the constructor. I mean, technically I don't have to deal with it, but I really wanted to, partially because it's level 17 and it would be nice XP, but also kind of as revenge. Naturally, the largest issue in this map is going to be the Gluttonous Thresher. Thankfully, I don't have to deal with his shield that time, but for once, that's not actually the issue. He deals an insane amount of damage. I kind of forget about that because I can usually melt him so fast, but his ability to hit me pretty much anywhere is becoming a major issue. And since this is his territory, he can go pretty much wherever he wants. So yeah, I may have died here. I did not expect him to deal so much damage so fast. But that's okay, or so I thought. I was really hoping to hide behind the door because I felt like he can't get back here. But interestingly enough, he can go quite a ways back. Thankfully, he can only go so far, so I do actually have a spot to relatively camp him. I just have to be super careful and not get hit because I have no real sources of healing at this point. Needless to say, it was a lot of sitting back, waiting for my amp shield, dodging his projectiles, and repeating until he was finally dead. The outwash didn't even feel that bad, but I had no clue how underleveled I was until I got back into the main highlands, where I saw 2 level 19 surveyors. That's a slight problem. These shield surveyors also attacked me, which is interesting. I guess if they have nothing to shield, then they'll go into attacking mode. I decided to pick off a few of the loaders right here because they're pretty decent XP, and I would like to get to level 17 before Overlook. When I was looking for a new shield, I managed to find quite literally the opposite of what I want. This is like the worst possible amp shield in the game. I can't remember if it's Torg or Bandit, but yeah, the special on here is insanely low. I mean, I know it's negative, but it's gotta be way negative for 27 amp damage at this level. That's ridiculous. I think we all know how the Overlook beacon defense is gonna go. Yeah, I have no chance of defending against these loaders. Even when I target their crits, there are just too many of them to actually deal with. Needless to say, they very much had their way with the beacon, and unfortunately you are required to repair the beacon if you want to actually progress the waves, because I still wasn't 100% sure about how that worked until this run. Yeah, I had to repair it. The robots just kept spawning, and I could tell I wasn't getting any progress because no angel lines. The only decent thing about this point in the game is getting level 16. At level 16, I actually get a skill that gives me a tiny bit of shield regeneration when I kill an enemy. It's not much. It should really be a whole lot more, but still, some shield regeneration is a whole lot better than nothing. As you can see by the massive jump in my levels, I've been doing a ton of side missions and other things so that I can level up. I'm hoping to get at least level 19 before the Wildlife Preserve. I've been doing all of the easy missions in the Highlands, and I'm working on the Overlook missions right here as you can see. Everything has been going slow, as per usual, but ever since I started using the Trespasser a whole lot more, criticals are super easy to hit. I mean, I was doing just fine with the Gearbox sniper rifle, but the Trespasser's a ton of fun too. This is because I did edit one in with perfect parts. This is one of the few times I was actually having fun in this run, because I did manage to hit some really sick shots on the engineers here. It was a whole ton of fun. I really need to do a whole sniping playthrough at some point with Zero. Since I'm doing missions and I was in the area, I decided to go into the Caustic Caverns, one of my favorite maps, just because of how incredibly unique it is. It's an amazing source of XP, and there's a super neat thing I wanted to mention here. You see this little railing structure? This whole wall here is only because of physics. Like, yes, this is an actual fun fact. If you play without physics on, you won't get this little barrier here. It's a weird thing, just like how much is added because of physics. And it's actually super helpful because it makes dealing with the Crystalisks a whole lot easier. Speaking of Crystalisks, who could forget Blue? This is a neat little boss fight, but it was incredibly difficult. And that's because of something I may have forgotten about. I'm not sure if it's a bug with Blue or this area. Actually, I'm guessing it's with Blue. But because of how Blue walks, he seems to do this odd thing where he actually vibrates the ground and it disrupts your shield from regenerating. That's why my shield would just randomly stop regenerating sometimes, and I couldn't figure out why. Now, this doesn't happen in certain spots, and phase locking him seems to help out quite a bit, but there's another big thing I forgot Blue can do. Regenerate health. 'Cause of course he can, right? In the middle of this fight, Blue just does this funny thing where his health bar goes back to 2/3. This is incredibly annoying, especially combined with the ability to stop my shield from regenerating, making this definitely one of the worst fights in the game. As long as my positioning is good enough, and I'm like quick enough with the fight, it should be no problem. But that was an interesting thing that happened. I was getting super fed up with this regeneration near the end, so I decided to whip out some bouncing Betty grenades. Again, the run's already invalid, so I just wanted to see if I could kill Blue at this point. But then, potentially the most troll behavior from any enemy in Borderlands 2. And I am talking the good old original troll face here. Blue's health just stands at a sliver. With no crystals remaining, and no way to damage him, Blue is now invincible and unkillable. I love Borderlands 2. This game's code is made of pure spaghetti and everybody knows it, but man, I've never seen this happen before. So yeah, Blue can be invincible. That's new. There honestly wasn't anything else too interesting here. I ran past all the threshers because I cannot deal with them, and the creepers actually forced me to run for cover because, again, I deal no damage. On top of that, I didn't even get either of the Minecraft guns from the creepers, which is a little disappointing. Still, this is the best Easter egg in Borderlands by far. While I was working on the Clan Wars missions, I actually remembered a super fun fact about the Wake mission. You don't actually have to come in and kill everybody. As long as you enter the bar and leave, it'll actually count as the mission being complete. But obviously, I want that sweet XP, so it is going to be a slaughter. I think the funnier thing is how I then proceeded to use their vending machine to farm for a new shield and class mod. Which this is one of the best vending machines because it's a pretty high level for the area. Since I don't need anything specific from the mission, I decide to kill the Zaffords. This is an important choice since I might want to farm Mick Zafford in the future. He's one of the best XP farms in the game, very similar to Badma. And that's obviously why I farmed Badma for so long. I'm going with the best sources of XP here. The Preserve started out as usual, stalkers. We've already seen how easy they are thanks to the Trespasser. And for once, wounding the loaders was actually super easy. Now that I understand how to hit all their critical spots, that is one nice thing I learned this run, they are a whole lot easier to disable, making this generally annoying part relatively easy. This whole dock area is a slight problem because of the power loaders. They also have my least favorite mechanic, bullet deflection. Yes, if you hit their shields, the bullets will come back and hit you instead. It especially hurts when you're using something like an amp shield. And well, I don't even deal that much damage. This could be much worse. Either way, the strategy I found for power loaders, which also applies to bull loaders, is actually get close to them and bait their melee attack. I jump back so I don't actually get hit, and then shoot off their right arm, since the connector is very much vulnerable at that point. This strategy is great because after taking out their right arm, their actual eye is way easier to hit than before, because the right arm is what blocks that critical spot normally. When I went to open an ammo box, I found this dude. It's pretty awesome. I love loot midgets. The only issue is it's a jet loader. You have to deal with these guys fast or they will literally start flying and run away from you. Considering my damage output, yeah, that's precisely what he did. Besides the fact these things hit like a truck, they're incredibly difficult to kill, especially when I can only do damage with crits. Well, really do damage at least. I finally realized how to hit robot criticals in phase lock though, so that's super neat. Mordecai's slag is also a huge help here, considering I have none of my own. I'm pretty sure most of you can guess what the next major obstacle is going to be. That is, of course, the super baddie loader that defends the door here. Now, technically there is a grenade skip that lets you get through this door, but I wanted to see if I could actually kill the super baddie loader. I mean, yes, I technically can, it's just gonna take a while. Conveniently, it is possible to shoot off his crazy gun arms, which makes the fight a whole lot easier, but the issue with that is, well, those are his only crit spots, as far as I'm aware. He doesn't seem to have a critical hit on his head, meaning even though he can't really shoot dangerous projectiles, he still has that one shock attack, and it's gonna take me a while to kill him. And as always, I am forced to go farm the 4 more loot dudes. Well, not save and quit farm this time, but I mean, I gotta kill them just to see what I get. They're all incredibly difficult enemies, but unfortunately I didn't get anything for all of my effort. It's always disappointing when you get nothing, cause man, these dudes are tough to kill, but at least they're good XP. And of course, once I continue with the main mission, this is when a bunch of enemies, which usually have baddies in the mix here, are released. These slag skags are going to be a slight issue, to say the least. The interesting thing is that all of the creatures in this area kind of break when they get out of this area. So when I lured them all the way out here, they kind of just got really stupid and stopped attacking me. It was kind of bizarre, honestly. But I mean, I'm not really complaining because it made them far easier to kill. I decided to run past all of the Cyclone Stalkers because I was having none of that, and then I found this in the next area. Yes, I have to kill a baddie shock skag. Since you guys have likely not heard me say it before, these baddie shock skags are my least favorite enemy in the game. They are just the most obnoxious thing to fight against. All of their attacks are absolutely terrible. The shock balls are horrible. The undodgeable shock beam attack that almost always one-shots you, that is most definitely the worst. The shock skag's ability to empower other skags around it is giving me a ton of trouble. This is because it's empowering all of the little pup skags, and when they get empowered, they get like a billion movement speed and run at you like crazy. Yeah, it was horrible. To add insult to injury on top of all of this, my game finally crashed. It was the first crash of the run, and of course it was in the preserve. I'm almost not surprised. This is because of those two slag skags earlier. You see, slag particles, the purple stuff, is what causes the game to crash the most with PhysX. I guess I should have known, with a run that would take this long to get through the preserve, I should have just turned PhysX off, but oh well. The nice thing is that I actually had a contingency in case the game crashed like this. I mean, I always have a slight feeling, because the preserve always seems to crash for me. So, a neat trick you can do is actually going to the circle of slaughter here, and the neat thing is if you go back into this map, it actually gives you a save point at the door right there. It's super nice because I'm now halfway through the map. You know what's pretty funny? Remember that grenade jump I mentioned earlier? Well, here it is. I learned this from watching speedruns of the game, and I just barely managed to do it, which was super nice. It's a super neat skip, and it saves me a whole lot of fighting. This time with the skag lottery, I got a fire skag. You know what? That's a whole lot easier to fight against than the shock one. I mean, it's still not going to be easy. The slag skags have given me the best time. Corrosive also isn't the worst. But hey, I'll take anything as long as it's not a freaking shock skag. I had no clue how the Bloodwing fight would go. I had no clue how the Bloodwing fight was going to go, but I knew there were going to be some issues. There's obviously my lack of healing, which can be fixed by hiding in this corner, but the main threat is actually the skags that she spawns. I kind of forget about these guys because I usually kill her so fast, and normally they're nice for second wins. But in this case, they just disrupt my shield, which, you know, is super annoying. Skipping a lot of this fight, it was going really well until this funny thing happened. I knew her shock phase was an issue because of how difficult it is, but I did not know she could same frame you like this. That's new. Yes, killed me straight through health gate and everything. Considering I can't use amp shields and fight for my life, I just have to give up at that point. The second part wasn't even crazy or anything, it just took me a long time, as all the combat in this run does, but I managed to beat her in the end. Again, I'm just still surprised by that same frame. I'm super curious why that attack works like it does. I'm guessing it has something to do with environmental damage that can same frame you, but I'm still not sure. 1000 Cuts was going super easy. The only problem here was obviously going to be the initiation. Thankfully, there are a few Goliaths that spawn here. I mean, we already know what I like to do with Goliaths. Leveling them up is a ton of fun. I could have kept this Goliath going for quite a while longer, but he was making it super easy. 1000 Cuts, at least the first time around, is one of the easiest parts of the game. Initiation is simple enough. Technically, it's the only mandatory combat here. And for the loader part, well, I have Brick to help me. Besides dealing a whole ton of damage, Brick is nice because he takes a lot of aggro from the enemies, which means I can kind of just sit back and snipe like I'm supposed to. The most notable thing in Opportunity was actually Foreman Jasper. The first thing I wanted to say is this is actually a reference to someone in real life. When I was reading one of the things from my physical copy of Borderlands 1, I have the little booklet and a massive map from the Game of the Year edition, you know, the physical disc and everything like that. But anyways, one of the names I read in there is Jasper Foreman. I wonder who this could be referencing. So I found that super interesting. But 4-man Jasper himself is pretty difficult. His attacks are super interesting because he throws out like exploder grenades. I've never really noticed that before, so I thought that was super neat. More importantly, his critical spot is actually the little cannon he has. His helmet is immune to critical hits, which is interesting. The climb to the bunker was definitely the worst part of this run. If you see where I'm at in the video, you can probably guess why. This place is just impossible. I got pushed back extremely far because of all the super difficult enemies here. I was certainly doing well for a while, but the first constructor is a major problem. I even farmed to level 23 by killing McZafford a whole bunch, and that just barely helps because a lot of these enemies are at least 23 or 24. It was at this point in the run I was truly starting to get sick of it. I was having no fun. Even though it was a cool idea at first, it's just getting too difficult to do anything now. I even ran through Lynchwood because there's a decent spot I know that has both a toilet and a trunk chest, so I can farm all sorts of new gear there, but I'm just not getting anything either good enough or high enough rarity. You see, that is the true issue with this run. Amp shields are stupidly rare, and really good ones don't even really exist. Like, you'll almost never see blue or purple amp shields. That's why the bee is kinda just the best. It's relatively easy to farm. It's obviously just the bee. It doesn't drain any shield when you use it. And considering, yes, obviously it's super easy to beat this game with the bee. I mean, I've already done a bees only run, so... But I was pretty much done with the run at this point. I just wanted to see what else I could get. You might notice something a little bit different in this clip. I'm playing Axton. Yes, that's right, I wanted to at least try out another Vault Hunter, and I have no intentions of playing Gage just yet. I already explained why I wanted to play Axton earlier, but now that I actually have the levels to get some of his really good shield skills, I truly want to try him. And let me tell you, he is so much better. The massive problem is just that it takes a while to get all of his good shield skills. Maya's is on tier 1, Axton's are on tier 2. I also completely forgot that I had to farm for a whole new class mod since I, swapped classes, so I have to do that real quick. One nice thing I can say about this run is that I got to use like a whole bunch of new gear that I wouldn't normally touch. Best example being class mods. I completely forgot that Axton actually had a shield regeneration class mod, and it's for the whole team as well, which is super neat. Obviously I'd still prefer like a legendary engineer or grenadier class mod, as those are definitely his best, but this is pretty cool as well. Don't get me wrong, all of the combat is still insanely difficult. The mobs can rush me as much as they want, especially considering I don't have phase lock. I do have my turret, but that's an offensive action skill. I don't want to use it all the time. One of the best parts about playing Axton though is his shield regeneration, which is insanely fast, but more importantly, his health regeneration when shields are full. That's an awesome skill, and that is literally what saved me during this entire fight. The constructor most definitely would have killed me here if I didn't have health regeneration. And no, this does not make me want to complete the entire run. This is still going horribly. I have a new amp shield, and it's pretty decent, but unfortunately it's for level 24, not 23. I really don't feel like farming XP anymore. I was actually considering just save editing the level to 24 instead, but I wanted to see how this would go. I partially fought my way all the way up here, but once I got close enough, we all know what I had to do. I ran right behind the baddie constructor. This is going to take a while, to say the least. And this is the footage I'm going to end the video and thus run on, because this is just the best example. I deal so little damage, even though I literally made a macro that fires a shot every 2.5 seconds, because yes, I did the math, that is how long I get in between shots here. This is just going so stupidly slow. Looking back at the footage, killing this constructor took me around 250 shots. That is an insanely long time, just for one constructor. Thankfully the other two aren't mandatory, but still. I don't even want to start thinking about how Bunker, Handsome Jack, or Warrior would have been. Yeah, I'm glad I stopped the run here. This is just ridiculous. I can't even really think of any way to make this better. I think Borderlands 2 with amp damage only truly is impossible. Okay, maybe not impossible, it would just take a long time. I think Wilhelm is impossible. So unless anyone has a good idea for that, yes, this run is absolutely dead. Honestly, I'm just glad I'm done with the run at this point. I was getting very tired of it by now, as you can tell. But at least it was an interesting idea, and I hope you all enjoyed watching the video. And of course, thank you all for watching. I very much appreciate it. And a special thank you to all of my channel members. All of you guys are awesome. This is going to be Enzo from LookIntoGaming, signing out.